Welcome back to another Terranscapes video. This video I'm going to show you the elevator that I created for the Orc display board. I wanted a system that would allow me to have things that could move from the top to the bottom, virtually, without me having to cut steps into the cliff, which will be in the back corner. And if you're not familiar with this project, you can go back and see some of the original videos on it where I show the proposed layout as of that time, whenever that was. But often I've found that putting stairs into a rock face, it's doable, but it's hard to make it look natural and be miniature stable. And cutting a walking path up can be challenging on how to, you almost have to create a switchback, which is not easy to do, especially in a very small amount of area. If you're interested in switchbacks, I wrote a monthly column on that, I don't know, last month, maybe a month before. And I explain switchbacks and some strategies to use to try to create those in your terrain, because it's such a difficulty getting from, flat to 5 inches without, having a walking path that goes like 6 feet in that direction. So I discussed that, show you some examples of switchbacks and some ideas on how to do that for yours. So anyway, that's a monthly column. It's on my Patreon feed, and it is publicly viewable. So at the end, when that little link comes up, or there's a link in the description, you should go over there and check it out, and you might have to scroll down a little bit for it. So don't be distressed if you don't see it right away. All right, well, I didn't expect to mention that. It just occurred to me. So let's take a look at the elevator. It's a long project. It took a lot to create, so this will probably be split into 2 parts, and you'll understand when you see it in just a second. So here you see the elevator platform, and hopefully right away you can notice that a lot of work went into this. It took me a while to cobble it together and come up with something that looked appropriate to me, at least. Didn't look quite like it came out of the Goblin Town box or the Scribe kit. This is, for those of you who may not know, this basic structure with these uprights and this I don't know what you want to call it, pole. These are part of the Goblin Town, well, the Moria goblins, and the Goblin King and his scribe. So the scribe actually sits suspended from the top of that pole on a little seat, and I thought it would make a great foundation for the elevator because it, already sort of has the, upright weight suspension design. However, there were several challenges to making this work, which I hope you agree it does. I hope, because here's why I was concerned. This is a really thin piece, and it didn't really feel like it could support the weight of the platform. I'll show you the platform down here in just a few minutes. And that became a real concern for me once I started putting it together. So I decided to band it in metal and rivets, and I thought there's a little risk there that it doesn't match, sort of Orc and Goblin construction. They don't do rivets maybe like this, but I figured, hey, maybe they've captured a dwarf and tortured him until he did the rivet work and then ate him, or something like that, right? There's always a narrative that can explain these things. And that was the only way I felt like I could attach them in a manner that felt like it was structurally, sound looking. And once I put those on, I felt a lot better about the appearance of them and how they looked like they could carry some real weight. Then, by accident, actually, I was trying to fiddle around with these uprights, and one of the goals was to not make them look identical. So I ended up, by circumstance and trial and error and mistakes, flipping around these so that this time the two posts are on that side, right, and the two posts are on that side. So it's a little bit of a mirror image. And then I ended up removing a lot of the icons that were at the top. There's one here that remains. This is, whoops, this is, what's on the post. And rather than have, one of these on each side and all of that, I clipped off a bunch, and then I added in my own bits from the bits collection I have to give it something a little bit more distinctive. And I felt like after I put in all of these little timbers to kind of support it and nailed them all in, that gave it enough of a distinction that it felt like, okay, they don't look identical anymore. And that made me feel a whole lot better, a whole lot better. My other concern was how to handle the back end of this pole, because in the original scribe model, there's a tiny little rock here that acts as a counterweight for him. And my original idea, as I mentioned in a previous video, you can go back in the Wayback Machine and look at when I'm talking about some things that I am contemplating for the future. I was thinking that maybe I would hang some, like the rock wheel / stone from the giant kit off of it, or something like that. And then I decided that instead of that, I would tie them to the posts. I said, well, screw it. I'm just going to, am I in the frame? No, I'm not. Okay, good. I'm just going to tie them to, posts and just lash it with rope. And when I was going through the Goblin Town set, and I had seen these before and I had forgot they were in there. They have these cute little hand cranks that are connected to a bit of chain. They're actually for a little tiny section of walkway that acts like a little bit of a drawbridge. And I thought, oh, those are perfect to put against the back. And then, presumably you could crank the tension to, get this all set right or something like that. I don't know how plausible that is, but it felt aesthetically right, and it gave a nice way to tie in the back of these uprights. Then I realized that once I had constructed this, that these were not going to be high enough to accommodate the block and tackle as well as the platform, right? The platform has height, and these are occupying some of the space as well. So I had to lift this up to get the extra space I needed to have all of these pieces come up. Now, it's not actually working, although these are functional, but it's not actually going to be at the very, very top. But I don't want it to look implausible. To me, this should work. I should be able to use this device. That's the only way to ensure it's actually plausible when you look at it. Otherwise, you'll say something's wrong, but you don't know why. So this is all going to be finished as though it is a functional piece. And that meant I had to lift this up. And so when I lifted it up, I had to accommodate for that by adding in the stairs. So the platform only needs to come to here instead of to here. So I gained some space that way, and that accommodates the block and tackle. This is a, actually, I'm going to talk about the block and tackle in just a second. The last part of the sort of upper platform area is this gangway coming off of this, and this was actually already a sort of like this in the Goblin Town kit, which is where a lot of these bits have come from, and I only needed to make a small modification to it to make some supports for it and have it come down. So I thought that worked out really well. I actually haven't cleaned this yet. I will be going in and dremeling off all of these bones and such that really don't fit the overall theme for the Orc and Goblin encampment. So that gives you a look at the uprights, and now we should take a look at, wait a minute, you know what, do they show? Oh, wait, if they come around, do they show? Oh, they do. Oh, okay. So before I show you the platform, we can talk just a little bit about the block and tackle. So this is a, okay. So this is a luff tackle, luff. I keep wanting to say it's a luff tackle, like fluff. It's a luff tackle. And a luff tackle is a double block at the top, a single block at the bottom. It gives you a 3-to-1 advantage, mechanical advantage, and involves having a rope tied to the top of the bottom block, and then that feeds through 3 times and then comes out, and that will go to the winch, which I will show you in a little bit, probably in part 2 of this video. Then the blocks have hooks that attach them to, the object to be lifted, and of course the supporting structure above. So I hand carved these out of balsa, not balsa wood. I was going to use balsa. Balsa is too soft. I thought it'd be easy to carve, and it's actually too soft to carve with this kind of detail. So I actually went in and used basswood for these, and I figured I just kind of hacked them into shape and try not to make them look too polished, because that doesn't really fit the the orcs as it is. They probably could have had the dwarf do this work as well, but they already ate them, so they had to just chew on it themselves. But I did add a little bit of metal strapping around them. I'm not going to put rivets on it or anything like that, but just to give it a little bit more of the appearance of a reinforcement. And that led me to the rope. And I don't like using rope. I've never used rope. And the main problem with rope, and the number one reason why I would say always stay away from it if you can, is that it's incredibly hard to get the proper tension on it to make it look like it's supporting something or pulling something, right? If this was actually lifting a heavy load, these ropes would be super taut. And so having any little kink or deformation in them breaks that illusion. So if I had used wire, anytime this was disassembled, moved, or anything like that, the wire would get a kink in it. And then in order to pull that kink back to straight, you would have to have a tremendous amount of force on it. It's really hard to just pull wire back to straight. So wire is right out. Same issue if you tried to roll it with, say, green stuff, right? Because that is going to get deformations when it's maybe sitting in the box, and it's never going to hang straight afterwards, or any of that. So as far as I could tell, I could do chain. Actually, chain would hold its shape much better than rope. I never thought about chain. That's funny. I'm not gonna, maybe if I got a really fine chain. That just occurred to me. All right, I'm gonna think about that. The problem is that these are not pulleys, and running chain through a block like this is probably not going to be too fun or easy to do. So I'm going to stay with rope right now, as I don't want to actually try to rebuild any of these sections. But in order to get the ropes as tight as they are, at least, I have quite a bit of a load in the actual cart, of literally weighting it to hold these ropes taut. So that's... I don't like it. But it's I think the best option I can come up with right now. This is a 1mm hemp rope, and I tried to find a rope that has texture in it that might, look to scale, and that is a little bit of a challenge, because there aren't a lot of twisted ropes that are at 1mm. This is about 1mm wide, and getting a nice twisted texture in ropes at that size is not easy. I looked at a lot of rope and string and twine and jewelry making stuff and everything, and I ended up settling on this rope. This is not the color of the rope nor the actual piece I will be using. Talk about that in just a second as well. So once I did that, and as a last thought, these hooks and all of this brass work, these are brass rod from my pin vise, clipped, filed them down using my Dremel. I have an alarm. Filed them down using my Dremel, and then bent them into shape to make the hooks, and then just bent them and sort of pushed them into the blocks to make the loops for them. The there are small tools, which I think is on my to-buy list in the not too distant future, where you can make perfect, rings, and it's like a little bending tool, and you can just bend it around. And because it took me a long time, because I'm fiddly and I'm neurotic, to get it reasonably round in a way that I liked. And it would have been very, very quick if I had the right tool. So that's probably going to be on my buy list in the future. You might say, well, it doesn't have to be round because they're orcs and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, but whatever. I wanted it a certain way, and I wasn't able to get that easily. But I got a pretty good job done, and I felt pretty good about it. So let me show you the cart, the platform, that's lifting, and I'll talk a little bit about how I worked with that.